Welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to another edition of Living Simply and Fun. I'm your host, Aries, also known as Rita, and this is Joe Bob McGee, Redneck Hillbilly. No, just
I thought it was just
Aaron.
I thought it was just Dopehead.
Anyways, this is Aaron. Today I want to talk to you about some of you viewers out there. This is cappuccino, right?
Yes.
So we will be in the future, and Aaron was actually giving me the grumps like a week ago. But we will be sampling various coffees from various makers and telling you what's good and what isn't, part of our Living Simply and Fun
That's one of the
videos.
things she wants to do because coffee's fun to her. To me, so-so. But I have had 3 today, which is more than I've ever had in one day, I think.
And to our video viewers like Angela out there, we will be testing out tomorrow making a latte, I think. Right?
No, because we got to get the stuff for a latte. We don't have the stuff for a latte.
Payday, we will get the stuff for a latte.
I thought I had the stuff for a mocha, but I have 100% pure cocoa, which is more for baking, and so it was very, very bitter,
now,
but it was still interesting.
For some of you out there, just before we get into cigar terminologies, I want to say that any coffee ground can be used as an espresso. Some people say, oh, well, you only need espresso coffee. Well, yes and no. Heck, we knew a guy that 10 years ago was using canned U-Ban.
The main thing is that it's stronger coffee because you're using more grounds for less fluid, and so...
it's like 4 scoops of my full-size coffee for the pots.
So it's essentially concentrated coffee.
Yeah, so anyways... Take it away, Aaron.
All right. Cigar terminology. For some of you, you probably know most of this. In fact, you probably don't even need to watch this. But for the beginners, well, you might just learn a few things.
I just want to say to Susan G, I hope this video helps you since you said you liked our videos.
So, start with the basics first, which even many of the noobs out there will know these terms. When it comes to packaging, you got a single stick, which is just one cigar. Some places sell by one cigar. When you go to a cigar shop, you tend to buy by one cigar. That's a single stick. Then you have what's called a bundle, which usually a bundle is a group of cigars wrapped with something like
in a
paper.
Plastic.
It's usually in plastic with a paper binder around a group of them.
Did you taste this?
No.
Ooh.
Sometimes it's called a mezzo, which is just another term. It could be in a canvas bag. It could be in a like a rucksack, basically. I've seen them that way. Or it could just have a paper wrapper or a string tied around it. And these obviously are fairly loose, just tied together. Then you have what's called a box. Now, a box is where you end up having an open, closed box. Sometimes a box that lifts off. And it tends to have anywhere from 10 cigars in it to 20 cigars. However, there are sampler boxes of like 5. Next for packaging is samplers. Samplers are a mix of usually single sticks. Sometimes you get 2 of one type of cigar. So there you go with that. Now, stick is a term used as like a generic towards any cigar. So next is your tools.
Gee, I thought cigarettes were called cancer sticks.
Yes, they are. That's also a slang term too, but that's for cigarettes. Tools for cigars. You have what's called a humidor. A humidor is usually used to keep anywhere from 20 to 300 plus cigars in a box that has what's called a hydrometer in it that measures the amount of humidity inside, and you want to keep the humidity up to a certain level. It's a little more advanced, but you need to learn this stuff because you're going to eventually probably want a humidor of some sort. It also has containers for humidification solution or for distilled water. There are also like little crystal beads that you can use that you pour water in and they keep it at a constant humidification level. Then you have what's called a Hurf-A-Dor, which I don't know if that's a slang term just used by Cigar International or not, but it usually is used to refer to a travel humidor carrying anywhere from 5 to 10 cigars, but there's travel ones that can carry up to 50 or 100. But it's meant for travel purposes. It's more like a suitcase or a mail purse, I guess, usually made out of plastic. So it's like a temporary storage container for travel, though. Then you have a three-finger case, which is usually a pocket case with a top and bottom that holds multiple cigars. You have your cutter, which is used for cutting off cigars. There's a double guillotine, which has like two razor blades that come together. There's a cutter that usually has one blade that comes across. You have the scissor-style guillotine. I don't know what those are called, but they're becoming very popular. And it's got little grips on the side. You close sideways instead of top to bottom. And then there's what's called a shuriken, which puts like 5 little slashes around it. And so it's kind of perforated. It's kind of more something I'd think of finding in the kitchen or something. And then you have, what was the term for that? I didn't write it down. A punch, which is what I use. And a punch is used to cut a circle-shaped size in the bottom, and it's more done by twisting in than anything else. So let's get into the anatomy of a cigar. We don't have a cigar here, but I will use a pen as reference. You have the end, which is the cut-off end. Usually you can see all the tobacco wrapped around it when you get your cigar. That is called the foot. Then you have the other end, which is sealed, and you usually have to cut, and that is what's called the cap. Now sometimes there's something called a pigtail on the cap, which is like a little twist at the end of it. You can also find that on a foot sometime if it's a fully sealed cigar, which I've rarely seen. Then you have like the little piece of paper that goes around it is called the band. And then the outer wrapper that you see, the visible part of the cigar, is called the wrapper.
Hurf-A-Dor means plastic or travel humidor. That's what the
I
definition.
just said. That's what I thought.
I thought it was a brand name.
Oh, I didn't.
But Cigar makes a Hurf-A-Dor right there.
Oh, okay. So then on the inside, you have right next to the wrapper what's called a binder, which holds all the tobacco in, basically, with the wrapper wrapping around so you don't see the binder. Then on the inside of the binder, you got the filler, which is the main flavored part of the smoke. So that was an interesting picture, but well,
apparently this is a picture of a guy in Afghanistan.
I know, I don't care. So at the cap where it's usually sealed, sometimes you'll have what's called a tip on it. Cool. So sometimes you'll have what's called a tip on it, which is usually a plastic tip. It could be a wooden tip, and it kind of, I don't know how to, it's more like having a pipe end on it. Since I used to smoke pipes, that's the easiest way to do it, the mouthpiece. And you hold that in your mouth rather than the cigar. You can also have a filter on the end, but those are usually machine-made.
Careful, you were kind of spitting in my arm.
And handmade cigars never have a filter that I've ever seen. So, then you've got the shapes. Now, for shapes, it's not really important, but just in case you're confused by the terminology, hearing all these words, wondering what they mean, these are various shapes that you can find. Bellicoso, Churchill, Cigarillo, which is the little ones that are cigarette size, basically.
Like the ones we got in the case.
Right. Corona, Lancero, Lonsdale, Panatella, Perfecto, Presidente, Robusto, Rothschild, Toro, and Torpedo. Sometimes, and Gordo, which isn't on here, or Gordito, which is even shorter, like Nubs. Now, sometimes cigar companies will end up using something totally different. Like I was just looking at aging room, because we're having an aging room tonight. And they will use terms like rondo, concerto, virtuoso.
My apology if any of you heard that.
Oh. So, no, but I smell it.
It's not that bad.
Hey, come on now. So anyways, these things are just words to describe the shape. Robustos are usually only 5 inches long, so they're shorter, where Churchills and Presidentes are much longer. Gordos are usually thicker. Coronas are usually a thinner cigar, with Panatellas being about the thinnest next to cigarillos, which aren't very long.
Panatellos are like 7" by 38. If
Torpedoes are the ones that come to an end and look like they have they narrow out and they thin out at the end. So they look like a torpedo. I did miss when I was talking about anatomy. There's something called a ring gauge. The Gordo is thicker, but they go everywhere from like 28 ring gauge for like a cigarillo up to like an 80 ring gauge, which I've only seen the Asylum Ogre.
Ogres, yes.
Yes, the Asylum Ogre is the only one I've ever seen come in an 80 ring gauge, but I have seen 70 ring gauges quite frequently with the nubs.
A cigar that actually shattered in a million pieces was a 70 today.
Yes, she had a Flor de Olivia Gigante, which just totally crumbled today. We've had it for about 8 years, and it was not humidified, and I was like, you know what, we should open this up and let it get some straight air rather than being this plastic, and maybe remove this wrapper from it too, and now it just kind of burst. Now to some other terms that you may wish to know. Tabacalera is usually a factory or an institution for rolling cigars. It's usually used in the company name, like this Tabacalera, blah blah blah. I could have my own place called Aaron's Tabacalera, which would be my cigar shop or cigar manufacturer. Yes, I know.
Sorry, I shouldn't whisper. I was wondering where Moppy Dog was, our other trusted
He hasn't been feeling well. He just kind of lost his lunch.
Did you clean it up?
Yes.
Where was it?
It was over there.
Okay.
Anyways, to go on, there's another thing called a tercidor. A tercidor is a person who rolls out a cigar. Usually, there's the old rumor of the virgin rolling the cigar on the thigh of her leg, on the pale skin, right on the bare skin. She would have been called a tercidor if that was the case. Usually they're done at a workbench with people standing along and each one rolling up like 50, 60 cigars a day or more. Then, for other terminology, you have a barber pole. Again, we'll bring up the ogre, because the Asylum Ogre is one of the most classic.
Which Aaron's generously donating me one next month.
They are wrapped.
The question is what size?
With I was thinking the 70 or 80.
We'll take the 80.
Anyways, it's wrapped with usually two different types of wrappers. So you get a dark wrapper and a green wrapper. The green wrapper is what's called a candela wrapper, usually, and they're much harder to find, and I love the candela wrapper. I wish they were more common. Speaking of wrappers, you have a Maduro wrapper, which is usually a very dark wrapper. You have the Habano, which is also typically a dark wrapper, but I think Habano usually... Yes, I think Habano usually means Nicaraguan, too. So it's a Nicaraguan-grown wrapper. So it could be a Nicaraguan Maduro, it could be a Nicaraguan Connecticut, or whatever. Corojo is...
Just to let you know, this is one fine coffee he made me.
Corojo is usually a lighter wrapper. Same with the Criollo, which I have never tried a Criollo wrapper yet. And then you have the Connecticut wrapper, which is always, that I've seen, pale, but I have seen a Maduro Connecticut. And then you have the Cameroon wrapper, which is usually a lighter wrapper, kind of in between light and dark. And then you have the Oscuro, which is a very dark, almost darker than Maduro. But I've seen a light Oscuro too. Other terms you may not know is box pressed, which is a cigar that is pressed down to be square almost, rather than a circular. And when you smoke these, they tend to puff up and become circular anyways. Don't read that.
Sorry, I was wondering...
You have tubo, or tubos, which is a metal tube or a glass tube, sometimes with a cork or sometimes with just a plastic screw on the end, like a plastic cover. And they're used usually to keep the cigar fresher. You have what's called a puro or a puros, depending on who says it. That usually means that all the tobaccos within the cigar come from the same area. So it'd be a Nicaraguan binder,
Wait a
Nicaraguan
minute.
wrapper,
So that's why they call
Nicaraguan
them
filler.
Puros Indios?
Yes, but I don't know what Indios would refer to.
I don't know, but
it
the
could
Chief
just be
is
the
the 18 inchers.
It could just be the Puros being part of the company name. in that case.
Puros Indios makes an 18-inch cigar.
Yes, but it doesn't necessarily. I don't know what Indios means, so it would be a pure Indios, whatever that is. It means pure though, which means everything comes from the same country, the origin. Body or strength, there is mild, mild to medium, medium to full, and full, which usually describes how strong the cigar is, how much it affects you the amount of flavor. Is it going to be like a burst of flavor, burning hot, full of sensation in your mouth, or is it going to be something you barely notice? And then when it comes to samplers, sometimes you find what's called a wingman sampler. Wingman sampler usually has two types of cigars that either A, complement each other, or are very similar to each other, and you may not have tried Cigar Choice 2, but you've tried Cigar Choice 1.
You mean like the Deuce ones that they do at Cigar International?
But the Deuce ones are different. Usually that's just two different types of cigars.
Yeah, but you said
together.
they complement each other.
No, I don't think so much in the Deuce ones. The Deuce ones usually are like Partagas combined with Cohiba. Both are very well-known brands, but they don't necessarily go to each other. I've seen one that was a Cohiba, I think, Partagas Oscuro or whatever, with just a regular Cohiba.
I think this would go good with a Ogre.
Trying to think if there's any other terms here that I've missed. Can you think of any that I've missed off?
None, not that I know.
Yeah, I really can't think of anything that I may have missed. I probably have. I mean, there's a lot of terms out there. And it's easy to get confused by some of them, particularly when it comes to buying a cigar, because you'll end up with a special, which means it's a special edition, or a limitada, which means it's a limited edition. Some of this is just known from trying to understand a little Spanish. Luckily, limitada, etc., kind of speaks for itself. Same with edición or reserva, or the special. It's close enough to our English word special, reserve, limited, etc. Like puros, it's pure. Anyways, this is 17 minutes already into terminology. I know there's other terms. You can get confused by Maduro and Habano, and I wish companies would tell you when something's box pressed all the time, because I've always wanted to try a box press, and I know there's companies that have box press, but I go through their stuff and I can't tell what's box pressed and what's not. It just says some could be box pressed. Well, I want to try a box press someday, but unless I'm actually able to see it in my hands, I won't necessarily know. That's one nice thing about Cigar International, is you go there and you're looking at the cigars, and they'll show you against the measuring stick how long the cigar is, and they'll show you whether it's box pressed or torpedo, etc. And as I said, you may find words like maestro thrown in there, like the M356 tonight that we're having, I think, is an M356 Rondo, which essentially is the same as, I think, a Rothschild, because a Rothschild, I think, is thinner than a Robusto, but it's roughly the same length as a Robusto, because Robustos are usually 5-inch length, but not always. That's why I didn't give you sizes, because I've seen 5.2-inch Robustos, and I've seen 5.5-inch Robustos, and I've seen Robustos with a 48 ring gauge all the way up to a 52 ring gauge. So they are not always generally specific to the same dimensions. I've seen Churchills with a 50 ring gauge, I've seen Churchills with a 48 ring gauge, and they're usually around 7 inches long, but I've seen them 6.8 inches or whatever, so it's not quite the same. Barber poles usually are not something people run across either, but as I said, the Ogre is a Candela, and it's crossed with a Maduro, I believe, because it's dark and green rather than being tan and dark. But I've seen tan and dark too. There's a company out there called Dolce Vita that has a tipped cigar, but It's not tipped with wood or plastic. It's tipped with a little bit of flavor at the end, so it's a different color wrapper right where the flavor source is, and so you got the flavor right there, and all the smoke has to filter through it. And it's easy to just chop that piece off. But I have not tried a Dolce Vita yet. Unfortunately, as I was telling my friend Rita, cigars are adult candy. It's like being a kid in a candy store when you get a hold of your catalog and you're going through it. It's like, I want to try this, I want to try this, I want to try this, I want to try that, I want to try this.
I explain to Angela that as well, because it is. It's like, you know.
Seriously sit there and get excited to try this or that. I'm really excited to try the M356 tonight from Aging Room. But also, I really want to try so many cigars out there, and unfortunately, I can't afford that many cigars to try all the types out there. And it's like, oh, I want to try this. Like next month, I'm getting an Asylum Ogre. I'm usually not one for the large ring gauges, but I sat there and I saw the barber pole, and I was like, thanks, Rita. She's a bandito today.
Sorry, everyone. It's kind of smelly.
I said bandito. It should be bandita.
Yeah, sorry, everyone. It is kind of smelly.
You should have to deal with your own.
Well, I'm next to you.
I'm going to give you a gas mask that's connected to it, and you can inhale it all by yourself. So, anyways, don't go playing with those things. I don't want to. No, don't play with those things. This is kind of more of a serious thing. Do that for fun.
I know.
She wants to play with effects because I said something about the stink. Or she said something about the stink. See? There she goes. Yeah. All right. Wow. So, anyways, the barber pole just seemed interesting to me. It's a bit of a novelty, I think. But there's a couple different barber poles out there, as I was saying. I don't know. It's just so many things to choose from. It's just, I don't know. I just get so excited and I want to try them all. I know I said that. And the more you learn, the more you want to try. So, happy smoking. Go get yourself some cigars. Go have some fun with some cigars. And if you feel like it, and you want to send me some cigars so I could try them, like I haven't tried any Criollos yet. I haven't tried any box press cigars.
You can send them to me over
here.
here.
I haven't tried any barber poles. Of course, we both have to sample one, which means you'd have to send us two. But we'd love to get some free samples.
Please add and subscribe if you like.
Take that as a hint.
Please
hint. Nudge. Her birthday's coming up, so
please add and subscribe if you like. Please post comments, leave feedback, suggestions. Thank you.
Oh, and by the way, I'm just having fun with that. I don't mean it seriously, but if you really do want to, go for it.
May God bless the world.